Hari Om. Jagat Karanam Karanajnanarupam Suradim Sukhadim Gunesham Ganesham Jagat Vyapinam Vishwavandyam Suresham Parabrahmarupam Ganesham Bhajema Parabrahmarupam Ganesham Bhajema. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaste. Friends, yesterday was 30th January 2022. It was observed as Martyrs' Day across India. This is being observed in memory of Mahatma Gandhi, who was killed by Nathuram Godse on this day. All of us know this. But what many of us do not know is Martyrs' Day is observed on 6 more days in a year in various states. 23rd March, on this day in 1931, Bhagat Singh, Shivaram Rajguru, and Sukhdev Thapar were sent to gallows. 19th May, on which day in 1961, 15 people were killed in Bengali language movement of Barak Valley in Assam. 21st October, on this day in 1959, CRPF personnel were ambushed by Chinese forces. 17th November, death anniversary of Lala Lajpat Rai, the Lion of Punjab, the famous Lal Bal Pal. 19th November, birthday of Jhansi Rani Lakshmi Bai, is celebrated in honor of those who laid their lives in First War of Independence in 1857. 24th November, death anniversary of 9th Sikh Guru Tej Bahadur, who was ordered death sentence by Aurangzeb. Martyr is one who has given supreme sacrifice of his life for the cause of nation. We have countless number of people who have attained martyrdom to get freedom to our country, so that all of us live in peace and freedom. The best way to celebrate these great patriots is to respect our freedom, love our country, and dedicate ourselves to protect the sovereignty of our nation. With a reverential salute to all those freedom fighters, let us get back to session 77 of our Bhagavad Gita verse by verse. In session 68, after completion of 9th chapter, we had studied chapter 1, section 1 of Muṇḍaka Upaniṣad. Today, let's continue from where we left. After the class today, we will have the chanting of Mantra Pushpam. Now, Dr. Hegde sir will introduce us to the topic of today's study before we go to the individual verses. Dr. Hegde sir.
Thank you, Venkatesh. Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Pariyantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. This is our second class on the Muṇḍaka Upaniṣad, where we evaluate our spiritual journey along with the Upanishad. If you watch a river, the course of a river is very wavy, but there are certain points on the course of a river where the river decides to take a 180-degree turn. Instead of going from the source to the goal, which is the ocean, the river decides to take a 180-degree turn and come back to the source. Wherever the river makes such a turn, that bend at that convexity, there is always a holy place, a ghat, to remind ourselves that our true journey, returning to the source, is an inner journey. The objective of a spiritual journey is to attain to Jivan Mukti. While I am alive, although limited by my body and mind, to see that the body and mind is only an instrument, I'm still able to discover limitless and permanent peace, security, and happiness. If this is possible, if even one person can attain to, it is our potential, and that is what we are going to work for. What is the byproduct? A byproduct of being a Jivan Mukta is this. Anything that can happen to my body, mind, anything that happens to my surroundings will not affect a person who has understood one's true nature. With this objective, let us proceed to the second class of the Muṇḍaka Upaniṣad, which is from the Atharva Veda. As we know, the Upanishads come from the end part of each of the Vedas, and the Atharva Veda has got 3 principal Upanishads, which have been commented upon by the great masters like Adi Shankara. To recap what we studied in the last class, Munda refers to head. And when we study Muṇḍaka Upaniṣad, it literally means a shaven head. A person who is dedicated to spiritual life relinquishes one's hair on one's head, because hair on the head is supposed to symbolize our attachment. If I have no qualms about shaving my hair off, it means I'm ready to give up all attachments. This Upanishad has got 3 chapters, and the technical name for the chapters are called Mundaka. So we have Prathama Mundaka, and so we have studied the Prathama Mundaka, and today's class will be going to the Dvitiya Mundaka. Each Mundaka has got 2 sections, and the sections are called Kandas. Totally, we have 65 mantras to study. Every Upanishad begins with a Shanti Pata. And this Upanishad, that is all the Atharva Veda Upanishads, have this very beautiful Shanti Pata, which we should make it our everyday prayer. Om Bhadram Karnebi Shrunyama Devaha. Whatever I see, whatever I experience, may it be auspicious. And whom am I addressing to? I'm addressing it to a host of Devatas. Now we must know clearly who are these Devatas. When we go to a temple, we have the main deity representing Parabrahma Paramatma. But next to it, there is also a Navagraha, Suryaya, Chandraya. Surya not only refers to the external sun, it refers to that Devata or that minister assisting God, which controls my vision also. Chandra Devata controls my mind. And therefore, this is a prayer referring to various devatas who preside over my body, so that when I am in this study, let there be a stay order on my prarabdha, that this study goes through very smoothly, that this master and student interaction goes well, and that my limbs be strong as long as I'm alive. I'm not asking for a long life, but I'm saying that as long as I'm alive, can my limbs be very strong? And let me have the grace of the Lord. And, it is also like a halo. It is like a rapport building. And that is why before we begin any of our studies, we begin with a Shanti Pata. The Upanishad begins in a very glorious way, declaring that it has come from none other than the creator Brahmaji himself. And then we have a nice lineage of how this knowledge has come to us. It has come from Brahmaji to his Jeshta Putra, to his oldest son, and from his older son to the teacher of this Upanishad, Angiras. And then comes a brilliant student. Every Upanishad is like a samvada. It's a discussion between the master and the student. But here in this Upanishad, the student Shaunaka, a prepared student, comes to a qualified teacher and asks some of the most brilliant questions ever asked. And the question is, to recapitulate, Kasminno Bhagava Vijñāti Sarvamidam Vijñāti Bhavati Iti. Bhagavan, oh my master, can you tell me that knowledge? And once I have that knowledge, I attain to Purnatvam. There is nothing more to be attained in life. Now that is what we are looking for. And by the end of the study of the Upanishads, we need to discover those verses of the Upanishad where this has been answered. Certainly it has been answered. It is not answered in one mantra, it has been answered in many mantras. At some stage you will hear one mantra, Vidyate Hridaya Granthi, the knot in my heart is broken. So these are all beautiful verses, but we go in a stepwise way, keeping this objective. Bhagwan, I want to know that knowledge. What is that knowledge which will give me the ultimate? And the teacher replies in a very systematic manner. And he says, of all the knowledge that we have, we can classify it into 2. One is called apara. Whatever we study in all our universities and higher centers of learning, medical engineering, whatever knowledge of all the objects that I can see and experience is called apara vidya. Then there is a knowledge about the knower, that consciousness principle. All of us are able to listen. Who is that one who is listening? the real me. That knowledge of that subject, the ultimate subject, is called Paravidya. After classifying, the teacher straight away goes in for a beautiful definition, which we all should remember because it is about our true nature. Yattad adreshyam, agraham, agotram, avarnam. Very poetic, very nice, which says our true nature is that which cannot be seen, which cannot be grasped, which has no birth, which has no attributes whatsoever. If there is some attributes, if there is some form, if there is some color, then you are able to see it. Why? It is not an object. It is the real subject. But this definition is very difficult to understand. It takes some time to understand. So the Upanishad comes down to a level and says, you see a world around you. Now, this world has been created by that Brahman. Now, for a moment, Brahman becomes a certain object. But let us not get confused. All the time we need to remember, just like I am the creator of my own dream, we need to see that consciousness in me is responsible for all the existence around. And the Upanishad gives beautiful examples. And the example is, we see the world around, and from the world, so many plants come. This is one example of how everything has come out of Brahman. Just like hair coming out of the body, so too, Brahman is no ordinary form of a creator. This verse talks about a technical term we studied in the last class called Abhinna Nimitta Upadana Karanam. That means Brahman is not only the creator of the world, Brahman himself has become the world. If this Upanishadic verse is understood, we immediately have Vishwa Rupa Ishvara Darshana. That means whatever I see and whatever I'm going to study from the next class, Vishwa Rupa Ishvara. Now this verse is like a Divya Chakshu. If this verse is understood, now I'm able to see this whole world as the body of God. The Upanishad concludes the Pratama Mundaka, Pratama Khanda by two more important verses by saying how this world came into being. That is why each of these words need commentary, because word tapasa chiyate Brahma. Now Brahma, the creator not Brahman. Here the word Brahma refers to Brahman or consciousness. Chiyate, swells. Tapasa. Tapasa normally means certain amount of austerity. Now Brahman does not have to do anything. Brahman in fact does not do anything. And Brahman being infinite, Chiyate means to swell, to expand. Brahman does not expand. But these are poetic, figurative ways to say, now Brahman begins to activate its own Maya Shakti, Tato Annam Abhijayate. Here Annam refers to Maya. So Maya now is activated. From Maya comes Annat, that is the gross matter, Prana, Manaha, those various lokas, and of course with lokas come karma. So this verse says that creation happens in a stepwise phase. The first is tapasa chiyate Brahma. Just like when you are getting ready for a race, you have on your marks and you're ready. That is that the world is now come into a state of preparedness. The word tapasa chiyate Brahma means Brahman is ready. Maya Devi has been activated. And then comes the Sukshma Prapancha. And from the Sukshma Prapancha comes this gross world. There is another verse which talks of Yat Sarvajna, Ya Sarvavid. Now that Ishvara, who is the creator of this world, is not only Sarvajna, but Sarvavid. Here again, we need to go to Adi Shankara. Ordinarily, Sarvajna and Sarvavid means omniscient, that which knows everything. But we are talking about Ishvara. Ishvara knows not only Paravidya, Ishvara knows Aparavidya. Now, a Brahma Jnani is a person who has Paravidya. He may not know details of mechanics, he may not know details of how the organs function within the body. That Aparavidya is Sarvavid. So that Ishvara should have this Jnanamaya, and from this comes Nama Rupa. And the Brahma here, Tasmad Etad Brahma, refers to Chaturmukha Brahmaji. So Brahma creates this world of Nama and Rupa. With this, we have completed the Prathama Mundaka, the Prathama Khanda, where the Upanishads has nicely brought out that the whole world has come into being. And now we go to the Prathama Mundaka Dvitiya Khanda. The first set of 7 verses will be explained to us by Dr. Divakar. Over to you, Dr. Divakar.
Thank you, sir. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. In the first Khanda of Prathama Mundaka, we saw the general outline of 2 distinct fields of knowledge, Aparavidya and Paravidya. Paravidya is the ultimate self-knowledge needed for the moksha. And this Paravidya, or in other words, Jnanakanda or Vedanta, is the main body of teaching of this, or for that matter, any Upanishad. Aparavidya, on the other hand, is the lower knowledge consisting of all worldly sciences, be it physics, medicine, statistics, engineering, etc. All the Vedic rituals elaborated in Veda Purva, which emphasize the sadhanas of Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga, is Aparavidya. Broadly speaking, Aparavidya is the Karma Khanda and Paravidya is the Jnana Khanda. So Aparavidya is the supportive or conducive knowledge to progress towards Paravidya, as Karma and Upasana Yoga of Aparavidya is a prerequisite eligibility needed to qualify to enter Jnana Yoga. Through Karma Kanda, one can get prayas, which is Artha, Kama, and Dharma Purushartha. Upanishad points out that the very purpose of the human birth is to attain Shreyas, which is the Moksha Purushartha, which is possible only through Jnana Yoga using Guru and Shastra Pramana. In this section of Dvitiya Kanda, in these 12 verses, Karma Kanda is elaborated, highlighting its benefits in accomplishing worldly and heavenly pleasures if these Vedic rituals are practiced as prescribed in the Shastras. Also, the Upanishad, while detailing the finer aspects of the rituals, encourages the seeker to understand the limitations and futility of Karma Kanda path and its uncertainty of results if one were to get stuck in karma only all their life. Upanishad hopes that the necessary dispassion towards the karma is generated by this study, and the seeker then could develop jignasa and propel towards Jnana Marga. With this background, let us start the study of Dvitiya Kanda, verse 1. Next slide, sir. Tadetat Satyam. This is a fact that those who perform karmas as per Vedas will acquire desired goals. This is true because the wise rishis, who are the authors of these mantras, are the very testament. Tretayam. These Vedic rituals are mentioned in the 3 previous Vedas, Rig, Yajur, and Samaveda. The other meaning of Tretayam is Treta Yuga, when these Vedic rituals were practiced diligently. But even today, these practices are legitimate means to attain heavenly world. So what are these prescribed religious ritualistic practices? Vedas talk of 2 sets of religious practices. The first set is the Nitya Naimittika Karmas or Nishkama Karmani. Panchamaha Yajna is the most important Nishkama Karma. As we already know, Panchamaha Yajna includes Deva Yajna, which is offering prayers to God through puja, homa, or japa. Brahma Yajna, duty towards Guru, Shastra, and propagation of Vedic teachings. Pitru Yajna, duty towards parents and forefathers. Manushya Yajna, duty towards society and the fellow human beings, especially those in need. Bhuta Yajna, duty towards animals, plants, and the environment. Vedas says that there is no choice when it comes to Panchamaha Yajna, and this has to be practiced by everyone every day, just like exercises. When practicing daily over a period, it helps in mind refinement and makes one get sadhana chatushtaya sampatti, which is a requirement for Jnana Marga. One of the practical benefits of Nishkama Karma is one becomes aware of the limitations of the worldly accomplishments. If we don't know the limitations of the worldly pleasures, then we will spend the entire life chasing these worldly goals, and we will be wasting this precious opportunity of our birth. There are incidental material benefits to the self also, which are to the self, to the family, and to the society from the Nishkama Karma. So Upanishad says, Sukritasya Loke, for getting all round benefits, material, heavenly, and spiritual, Tanyacharata Niyatam. Practice Pancha Mahayagna according to your capacity and resources on a regular basis. The second set of ritualistic practices are Sakama Karmani. These are special practices Vedas suggest for fulfillment of specific desires. For example, Putra Kameshti Yaga for getting children, Ayusha Homa for health, etc. This suggests that Vedas acknowledge the worldly desires, Sakama Karma, as legitimate too, but more emphasis is given for Nishkama Karma. Next slide, sir. In the verse 2, example of Agnihotram is taken as Deva Yajna to illustrate the truth of the promise made in the previous verse. Agnihotram is a very well-known fundamental daily fire ritual which has been in practice for many yugas. One who performs Agnihotram daily is called as an Agnihotri. Perhaps everyone was performing yajnas in Treta Yuga. Yajan Yagnai Tretayam. Vaidika yajnas were predominant then. But now there are only very few people who are Agnihotris. A database done by the Kanchi Peetam after extensive surveys have listed only 130 Nitya Agnihotris currently amongst the population of 140 crores in India. A Gruhastha performing Shrauta Karma, that which is mentioned in the Shruti, which is Vedas, will be expected to preserve at least 3 sacred Agnis, Garhapatyagni, Ahavaniyagni, and Dakshinagni. As the name suggests, Garhapatya is the Gruhapati, the lord of the house. It wards off all the negativities in the family. Garhapatyagni has to be preserved at all times till the time of the death. In fact, it is the same Agni which will be used for Antya Samskara, the final offering of the body. For Agnihotram, Grihastha will have to take Agni from Garhapatya, and Ahamaniyagni is invoked in the rectangular or square-shaped Agni Kunda. This kindling of Agni, Archi, has to be done using a twig, Samida, and not a lighter or a matchstick. Then the oblations are offered when it is throwing up the flames in the middle portion of the Homa Kunda by chanting the appropriate mantras to invoke Surya Deva and Prajapati. Such Agnihotram is done once in the morning, Pratar Agnihotram, and once in the evening, Sayam Agnihotram. After the Homam, the fire is brought back to Garhapatya. Dakshinagni is used for other yajnas such as Prayaschitta Yajna and sometimes also used to cook food for the priests. Next slide, sir. Now, in the verse 3, Upanishad talks about terms and conditions for an Agnihotri and the consequences for not abiding by these terms and conditions. Along with Agnihotram, which is a daily ritual, several other rituals must be performed. Darsham, the ritual to be done on or around Amavasya once a month. Paurnamasam, around Paurnami, the full moon day once a month. Chaturmasam, once in 4 months. This is different from the Chaturmasam of sannyasis, where the rituals are done for 4 months from the month of July. Agrayanam, harvest rituals. Almost all harvests have Danam as an integral practice. Atithi Varjitam, Atithi Devo Bhava. Never cook for self and the family alone. In Bhagavad Gita 3.13, Lord Krishna says, one who cooks for just self is the biggest sinner. Therefore, do Annadanam. Na Annodakam Samam Danam. There is no equivalent to Annadanam and Jaladanam. Next is Vaishvadevam, Bhutabali, food for animals and the plant. This is Bhuta Yajna. So we see Pancha Mahayagna being prescribed as a mandatory duty for all of us. So Deva Yajna in the form of Agnihotram or Puja, etc. is followed by 4 other Nishkama Yajnas. So no expectations or exceptions from these duties. So what happens if this is not followed properly? Upanishad says that such a person will have spiritual downfall because of what is called as Pratyavaya Papam. This not only destroys the person and the family, but the 7 generations of the family. In the verse 4, we see different types of Agnis. Agni is given a very special importance in all Vedic rituals. After all, it is the Vedic light which removes the darkness of ignorance. The 7 different types of flames, the tongues of Agni, are described. All the oblations must be offered only when the fire is with the flames, or else we know that the smoke will engulf the area and causing a lot of irritation to our eyes. More importantly, the oblations doesn't reach the desired destination without the Agni, as Agni Deva is the courier service who carries the offerings made to Prajapati, Yamaraja, Pitru Devas, etc., or whichever Devatas the offerings are made to. So flames are called as tongue, Jihva of Agni Deva. And symbolically, all oblations are made directly into the mouth of Agni Deva with chanting of mantras ending with Swaha. Sapta Jihvas, the 7 different types of Agni Jihvas are Kali, the dark-tongued flame, Karali, the fierce and very hot flame, Manojava, swift and fast-moving flame, just like the mind, Sulohita, deep red flame, Sudhumra Varna, smoky flame, Spulingini, sparkling flame which makes noise, and Vishwaruchi, multicolored blazing flame. In the verse 5 and 6, the benefits are talked about. We know that the Nishkama Panchamahayagna gives all-round benefits, both material as well as spiritual. In these 2 verses, material heavenly benefits of Nishkama Karma is elaborated. Those Nishkama Karmis who do not or unable to enter Jnana Marga go to Swargaloka after their death. The very Devatas whom he had worshipped through oblations guides and escorts this Jiva to the heavenly abode, crossing the race of the Surya Deva. Not only that, he will receive a grand welcome at the gates of the Swarga, and he gets praises for all the good karmas done in his Manushya Janma. He gets treated as one amongst these Devas. So the Jiva not only gets the Lifetime Achievement Award, but also an instant citizenship at the Swargaloka. In Devaloka, every sense pleasure experienced in the world is quantitatively and qualitatively much superior by many folds, be it health, wealth, bliss, or even lifespan. Jiva therefore enjoys in Devaloka till the punyam is exhausted. So these pleasures are also temporary. In the verse 7, we see that this verse talks about the limitations of the karma when practiced only for the material benefits. Any material pleasures, however wonderful they have 3 intrinsic defects, which are dukkha mishritatvam, the struggles and sorrows while acquiring, maintaining, and while losing our possessions, atruptikaratvam, feeling incomplete with any acquisitions, bandhakatvam, causing bondage. Therefore, leaning on material pleasures or samsara is not going to give us lasting peace, security, and happiness. Here, Upanishad criticizes those who get stuck at this stringent ritual karma level for material benefits, as these benefits are finite. Yagna Rupa, accessories used for the Vedic ritualistic karmas, is taken as an example to explain these limitations. Ashtadashoktam, 18 people are required for any yagna. 4 priests from Rigveda called as Potragana, 4 Advaryugana from Yajurveda, 4 Udgatragana from Samaveda, and 4 Brahmagana from Atharvana Veda to oversee all the rituals. And of course, Yajamana and his Patni, the main performers. It is important to note that the Patni is given the equal importance as the Yajamana in the Vedas. So 18 people, homakundas, dravyas, mantras, and other accessories are required to do yagnas. Upanishad says all these accessories are finite only. So the results of a finite actions will also be finite. These finite karmas is compared to a boat, plava, which is broken, adrudha. So how can anybody cross this miserable and rough ocean of samsara sagara, using a fragile karma boat? Upanishad uses a strong word and calls mudha, deluded one, to those who believe that just by doing karmas, rituals, charity, and austerity, they can get moksha. Etat shreyohe binandati mudha. Such a person will go through the cycles of birth and death. Here, it is important to note that the criticism is not on the rituals, but the strong identification with only the rituals and not using them to elevate oneself towards the Jnana Marga. As Shankaracharya says, Govindam bhaja modamate samprapte sannihite kale nahi nahi rakshati dukkram karane. Upanishad clearly states that don't get stuck at karma level, as it can't stop the sufferings of old age and the death. Let each oblations offered to the Agni and each karma that we do on the daily basis burn our ego and remove all the impurities to enable us to proceed towards Jnana Yoga in order to realize the immortal self. Hari Om, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Divakar. That was an excellent summary of the first 7 mantras of the Dvitiya Kanda, which focuses on Aparavidya. Aparavidya means all kind of exercises that gives us all the various benefits in the world. But at the same time, you highlighted that these are not something bad. I mean, they are very good to help us to get all the good things in the world, because we need all the good things in the world. But let the focus be that I'm here for something higher. And it will be explained a little more in detail by in the next few verses that come. But meanwhile, we have 2 more verses about knowledge and ignorance, which will be explained by Mamta. Over to you, Mamta.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Avidyamantare vartamanaha swayam dhira panditam manyamanaha janghanyamana paryanti mudha andhe naiva niyamana yathandha. In the next slide, self-ignorance and associated results. These are the 2 words which aptly summarize the essence of the 2 verses 8 and 9. The Upanishad talks about the term Mudha and its association with avidya and self-ignorance. This avidya or self-ignorance is the cause of samsara, which means a self-ignorant person identifies falsely with body, mind, and ego, giving rise to 3-fold personality of the knower, the doer, and the experiencer. He is subject to desires and attachments to worldly beings, and in delusion go in search of security, peace, and happiness from the outside world. In the next slide, further looking into the shloka, Avidyayam antare vartamana and swayam dhira pandita talks about an individual soaked in spiritual ignorance, that is, mudha or ignorant ones. They consider themselves very intelligent and learned enough and don't need any advice or suggestions regarding spirituality. They engage in sensory and materialistic pleasures guided by materialistic people who have no time for religion or spirituality. Andhe naiva niyamana athandha. The scripture equates these materialistic people to that of the blind guided by the blind. This life makes them wander paryanti in search of perceived happiness, which ultimately results in janghanyamana, the continuous cycle of birth and rebirth. Going to the next shloka, that is verse 9. Avidyayam bahuda vartamanaha vayam kritartha ityabhimanyanti balaha yat karmino na pravedayanti ragat tena turaha kshina lokaschavante. In the next slide, avidyayam bahuda vartamanaha. Ignorant people soaked in various emotional dependency like money, family, relationships, to name a few, believe that all these worldly things are permanent and will be there forever. They are unaware of the spiritual truth, but still think they know everything and develop a sense of achievement, kritartha, and they proclaim it loud and clear, ityabhi manyanti. They are not aware that all favorable conditions are because of favorable karmas, and good karmas exhaust as well. Upanishad compares such people to children, that is balaha. The reason being, the children have age-appropriate knowledge, which cannot be considered as complete as it gets matured only with age. In the next slide, Yet karmino na pravedayanti ragat. Ignorant people are involved in varieties of activities, including Panchamahayajna, but with an intention to reap the fruits of actions. They are always in the path of to know, to do, and to experience. They get attached and addicted in the process, thus developing emotional dependency without realizing the limitations with such activities. The bucket list. This is a term used by people to put together a list of things that they need to do in their lifetime. People take a lot of time fantasizing and putting very ambitious materialistic things in the list. Many a time, this list mainly includes materialistic pleasures of travel, experience, and food. I should see this place and like eat Turkish delight in Turkey, and the list goes on. Some people have items of service to help orphans, the needy, etc. The more we do, the more we experience and more we know. The list keeps going on and does not come down. In the process, we are stuck in samsara, tenaturam. Swamiji terms that all the items in our bucket list will not be enough to get rid of avidya and the cycle of birth, rebirth, unless one of the items is to move out of self-ignorance. Otherwise, people who continue to remain self-ignorant will ultimately fall down to lower loka when their punyam is exhausted. Kshina lokascha vante. In this context, experience bad or worse days, and loka in the context means punyam. In the next slide, these two shlokas emphasize that when we remain self-ignorant, we are stuck in samsara. Desire, anger, and other vices are the byproducts of samsara. To tackle this problem, one should move to a religious life. In other words, practice karma yoga and upasana yoga. Religious life is like a foundation course. By itself is not a remedy for samsara. It only identifies the problem and helps to discipline and train our mind for the concept of spirituality, which involves systematic Vedantic study, that is Shravanam, Mananam, Nitidhyasanam, under the guidance of a competent guru. This spirituality will lead us to the path of leading a spiritual life. The ability of an individual to successfully dedicate himself to a spiritual process will lead him to the ultimate goal of moksha or liberation here and now. In the last slide, I will summarize these shlokas with a beautiful quote by Rumi. The more awake one is to the material world, the more one is asleep to the spirit. Thank you, sir. Hari Om.
Thank you, Mamta. That was an excellent explanation of two verses, and you brought out the right significance. And this particular eighth mantra is very often quoted. Avidyayam antare vartamana swayam dhiraha pandita manyamanaha. Although a person is ignorant, and you will see in our daily life, they do not know, but they are so confident, absolutely confident that they are right. In the knowledge domain, there are four categories of people. First category of a person is one who does not know and does not know that he does not know. He is ignorant. He is like a fool. He is ignorant. He does not know and he does not know that he does not know. So when a person does not know that he does not know, he will not come in for learning. The second category of a person is a person who knows that he does not know. Because I know I am ignorant, I go to a teacher to learn. The third category of a person is a person who knows, but he does not know that he knows. There are rare examples. The usual example that is given is of Hanuman, who had all the siddhis and all the abilities in him, but who needed to be told that he is already that. In a way, I can say all of us also come in that category. because we are already that which we can possibly be, but we do not know. We need a teacher to say we are already that and to prompt us and guide us to our true nature. And finally, there is the fourth domain, that is our spiritual acharyas who are enlightened, one who knows and who knows that he knows. A person who knows and he knows that he knows. The Upanishad talks of one more category of a person who does not know, but he claims to be wise. We have two more verses in the Prathama Mundaka Dvitiya Khanda, which are on the same lines which Dr. Divakar explained, which will be explained to us by Venkatesh Prasad. Over to you, Venkatesh, sir.
Thank you, sir. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. We heard from Srimati Mamta Madam, who beautifully explained the mantras 8 and 9, which talk about attitude of avidya people who believe they are wisest. Here, 10th mantra calls them pramudhaha, meaning filtered foods, and discusses about their acts. Let's now take up the verse, which goes like this. Ishtapurtam manyamana varishtam nanyachreyo vedayante pramudhaha nakasya prushtete sukrutena bhutva imam lokam hinataram vavishanti. Let us try to understand. Here the teacher uses the word pramudaha, means filtered foods. Why they are so? Because ishtapurta varishtam manyamanaha. Ishtapurta refers to actions, rituals. Ishtam is a type of Shrauta Karmani, the Vedic rituals, and Purtam is more of Smarta Karmani, which is in the form of service activities. Vapi Kupa Tadagadi Devata Yatanani cha Annadana Pradana Maramaha Purtam Ityabhidiyate. Digging wells for the sake of public utilities, building temples or schools, or giving free food when there are functions, festivals, etc., giving water, giving buttermilk, building rest houses for the pilgrims, etc. In short, Purtam means all types of social service and Ishtam means all types of ritualistic activities done for the sake of the well-being of society. All are different types of karmas alone, and they can be done in two ways. As we see in the next slide, material motive or sakama karma, which is with the intention of getting reward, favors, recognition, name, fame, etc. Spiritual motive or nishkama karma, which is done without any motive or intention. This is not only wonderful, but a must for everyone. The word ishtam derives from two roots. One is ish, means priyam, fond of. The other is yaj, yajati, to worship. Desire is ishtam and worship is also ishtam. In this context, we should consider Vedic worship only. And this worship, as well as social service, can be done for the purification of the mind. So, continue whatever religious practice you are doing with a little change in sankalpa. Mama upartha samasta duritakshe Shri Parameshwara Prityartham. So, here the criticism is only for sakama, not karma. As we go to next slide, these ignorant people consider sakama karma as varishtam, great thing, and anyat shreya na vedayante, do not know anything else in the form of shreya or moksha sadhana, a spiritual discipline they have not heard at all. So carry on with whatever ishta purta religious and social activities, but not at the cost of spiritual practice. That is Vedanta, Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. Taittiriya Upanishad gives very clear instructions to the student. Swadhyaya pravachanabhyam na pramadito yam. But what to say of these ignorant? They do all sakama karma, like going to all pilgrim places, do all type of pujas, and acquire a lot of sukrute punya, due to which after death they go to nakasya prushthe, painless pleasure. Naka means heaven, kam is pleasure, akam is pain, nakam is painless pleasure, which is in heaven. They enjoy this heavenly pleasure, te anubhutva, as long as balance of punya lasts. Then what happens? They would have acquired papa also with some bad deeds, which will start fructifying. So they fall down or come back vishanti to Manushya Loka or to Patala Loka, or they may get animal or insect janma. Hina taramba. This is the fate of pramudha. Now, with the next mantra in the next slide, let's go to vidvamsaha, wise people. Tapashraddheye hyupavasantyaranye shanta vidvamso vaikhyacharya charantaha suryadvarena te virajah prayanti yatramrutasya purusho hyauyayatma. We can see in our next slide that in this mantra, the discussion is shifted from karma pradhana aparavidya to upasana pradhana aparavidya, the lower science in the form of meditation. Upasana is defined as Saguna Ishvara Dhyanam like Rama, Krishna, Shiva, etc. This is also termed as karma, but only difference is the karmas we discussed in previous mantra was Kayika and here it is Manasika, since it is done by mind only. Upasana means Ishvara Samipa Vartanam, live near God mentally. Next slide shows that Shastras have prescribed ashrama vyavastha for gradual elevation of human being. In Brahmacharya ashrama, only adhyayana pradhanam. For a grihastha, it is karma pradhanam. In vanaprastha, it is upasana pradhanam. And in sannyasa ashrama, karma and upasana become subsidiary, and Vedanta adhyayana, manana, and nididhyasana will take prime importance till death occurs. Amrute kalam nayet Vedanta chintaya. So, sannyasa ashrama is Vedanta pradhana. Let us now move to the next slide and understand the meaning of this mantra. Here in this mantra, Vidvamsaha means not Jnanis, but Vanaprasthashraminaha Upasakaha. Where do they live? Aranye Upavasanti. Earlier, people used to go to forests or to outskirts of city. But now at least all family responsibilities will have to be handed over to children and live a secluded life to be a Vanaprastha mentally. Bhaikshacharyam charantaha. Vanaprastha also lives on Bhiksha, like Brahmachari and Sannyasi. Due to the reduction or no responsibilities, they are Shantaha, cool, always in peace. What do? Tapah Shraddhe, practicing both Vanaprastha Bhita Karma and Upasana. Again, Upasana is of two types, Sakama and Nishkama. Nishkama Upasana leads to quietude of mind or Shamadhi Shat Sampatti, which will later lead to moksha. But here, Vanaprasthis will do Sakama Upasana, which will make them Virajaha. They will neutralize Papa and become Punyavantaha. And after death, Suryadvarena Prayanti. They travel through a special path called Suryadvaram, otherwise called Shuklagati. Where does he go? Yatra Brahmaloka, where Purushaha Vartate, meaning Hiranyagarbha or Brahmaji. He is Amrutaha, he is relatively eternal. Avyayatma, he is free from old age. Jararahitaha, Apakshayarahitaha. Here, one will acquire Jnanam through Brahmaji himself and attain liberation, which is termed as Krama Mukti. We have studied this in Bhagavad Gita 8th chapter in detail. If one doesn't attain Jnanam here, he will fall down. This is Aparavidya. Next mantra, Parikshalokan Karmachitan Brahmana, discusses how to switch over from Aparavidya to Paravidya. How does this transition take place? We will listen to this from Dr. Hegde sir himself. Hari Om. Thank you.
Thank you, Venkatesh Prasad, for an excellent explanation, which prepares us for this important verse, the 12th verse. In fact, the 12th verse of the Dvitiya Khanda Pratama Mundaka summarizes everything that we have studied so far. This verse, if studied properly, can bring a change in the outlook to the way we work, the way we live, and our goals in life. Pariksha lokan karmachitan brahmano nirvede mayat nastya krit kritena tat vijnartam sa gurumeva abhigachet samitpani shrotriya brahmanishta. Every word is important here. The word pariksha. Pariksha means pari. Pari means going all around. Ikshate, to examine. So the verse is telling us, have you examined your life? Socrates has said, if you have not examined your life, you have not lived a full life. Once in a while, take a break and say, as you look at your life, what do you examine? Lokan, karmachitan, brahmana. Brahmana here means a spiritually wise person, a person who has some knowledge of what is karma yoga and what is upasana. Upasana means that a person knows certain meditative techniques to be able to quieten his mind. Only a quietened mind is able to learn from one's own experiences. Otherwise, we can't learn from any experiences. From unpleasant experiences, we suffer. From pleasant experiences, we have no time to pariksha, examine and learn. So if a person has been into karma yoga and upasana yoga, such a person is a spiritually wise person, a brahmana. What does he do? Lokan karmachitan. Karmachitan means through my karmas. Here in the earlier verses explained by both Venkatesh Prasad and Dr. Divakar, where from the Vedic angles of various karmas and upasanas, but here it is our day-to-day work. What is that I have achieved? Of course, to the world around, you can say, what all I have achieved. But to yourself, the question is, has all this given me, has all the success in the world given me fulfillment in life? If I'm still in that rat race, what happens? I still continue to do the same thing. Somebody has so nicely said, if you always do what you always did, you will always get what you always got. More surgeries, more publications, more international presentations, more orations. Your biodata is increasing, but has it brought any fulfillment in life? If that fulfillment is not there, the next word is nirvedyam ayat. I develop a kind of a frustration to all this accomplishment. In Vedanta, it is called vairagya. A person now develops vairagya, nirvedyam ayat, and then his mind is open to nasti akrita kritena. Akrita means the infinite or moksha. The infinite can never be attained to my finite efforts. More operations, more patience, more travel is not going to give me the infinite. That permanent peace, security, happiness, that Jivan Mukti state is not going to be attained by more and more of worldly accomplishment. If that is very clear, tat vijnartham, if that wisdom has dawned into my mind, now this person, like a river, makes a 180-degree turn. Such a person is now clear that spending more and more time in doing what I have always done is not going to take me much further. If such a person now becomes a vanaprastha, that means mentally now a sannyasi or a preparation for this inner journey, he knows that he has to approach people who have attained. And such people are called guru. Guru meva abhigachet. How do you go to a guru? This verse says you must carry samit pani. Pani means hand. Don't go empty-handed. Carry samit. Samit means a dry twig. When you go to an ashram where there is a havan, which you saw in the earlier verses, when you put that samit, that dry twig into the havan, that means you're contributing to the fuel or the learning process that is happening in the ashram. But samit is also my past. Samit is also my ego. I go to the master with my samit, my ego, my past, and surrender. When you go to the teacher, you surrender your past. The teacher now initiates you into a process of learning. The teacher may give you a new mantra. The teacher may give you a new name also. And such a process is called, such a teacher is a Shrotriya, the one who is accomplished in all the Shrutis. He has the ability to communicate what has to be communicated, because this learning is an extraordinary learning. It is not like the ordinary learnings that we have in our colleges and universities. And such a person is also a Brahmanishta, a person who's anchored into the Brahman. So this is what this beautiful verse says, and I will summarize it in this way. Our aim is to become a Jivan Mukta. Our aim is to attain to moksha. But spiritual masters say moksha is not an event that happens at some time. Moksha is a siddha vastu. It is something that you already are. Now you have a dilemma. I see limitations about myself, but the spiritual masters say, I am infinite. Now starts the process of inquiry using the Shastras, and I go to a Guru. And once I am ready to learn, the Guru now unfolds the Shastras to me in a very systematic, but it will take time. This is a process because this is the highest accomplishment ever. Remember, be ready to give whatever time through Shravanam, through Mananam, through Nidityasanam to understand that what the teachers say about my true nature is more right than what is my experience. If I can summarize this verse again so that we remember. Pariksha, having examined, Lokan, whatever I have accomplished through Dharma, Artha, and Kama Purusharthas. Karma Chitan, that is a person who is through karma, through upasana, such a person, a wise person, if you have examined your life, you attain to nirvedyam or vairagya. And now you know one more thing. Nasti akrita kritena, that I will not be able to get the infinite through my finite efforts. Tat vijnartam, through this wisdom, sa gurumeva abhigachet. I now go to a teacher very reverentially, like Shaunaka went to Angirasa. He addresses him as, O Bhagavan. Now you cannot go empty-handed. Pani in your hand carries samit. Samit means I'm ready to be ignited. Through the fire of understanding, I'm ready to dissolve myself under the hands of a guru, a Shrotriya Brahmanishta. There are two more verses which conclude and which say the same thing. It says, once there is a prepared student coming to a prepared teacher, the teacher has his Shrotriya Brahmanishta, the student has got all the qualifications, the teacher now begins the study. So with this background, we have completed the first chapter, the Pratama Mundaka with 2 kandas. An ideal student, that be all of us, has come to our ideal teacher, our guru, our acharya. And this is the introduction that we have got in the first Mundaka. The next Mundaka that we will study after the 11th chapter. The 11th chapter which we are going to study is Vishwarupa Ishvara Darshana, where we open our Divya Chakshu with the eyes that we have to be able to accept everything as God, which we will see in the next class. And then we come to the second Kanda, which is the essence of Brahma Vidya. Friends, this Upanishad is amazing. Absolutely, absolutely amazing. It is the source book of all the Bhagavad Gita. And if you can surrender yourself, if there is that commitment that I'm here to learn, our acharyas, and we have every system available that each verse of the Mundaka, especially the second chapter. The second chapter, each mantra is particularly important. Let us commit ourselves to an understanding of Mundaka so that by the time we finish the 18th chapter, this Upanishad is very clear for us. We will conclude this class by the chanting of Mantra Pushpam by B.V. Jagdish. Over to you, Jagdish, sir.
योपां पुष्पं वेद पुष्पवान् प्रजावान् पशुमान् भवति चन्द्रमा वा अपां पुष्पं पुष्पवान् प्रजावान् पशुमान् भवति य एवं वेद योपामायतनं वेद आयतनवान् भवति अग्निर्वा अपामायतनम् आयतनवान् भवति यो अग्निरायतनं वेद आयतनवान् भवति आपो वा अग्निरायतनम् आयतनवान् भवति य एवं वेद योपामायतनं वेद आयतनवान् भवति वायुर्वा अपामायतनम् आयतनवान् भवति यो वायोरायतनं वेद आयतनवान् भवति आपो वै वायोरायतनम् आयतनवान् भवति य एवं वेद योपामायतनं वेद आयतनवान् भवति असौ वै तपन्नपामायतनम् आयतनवान् भवति यो मुष्यतपत आयतनं वेद आयतनवान् भवति आपो वा अमुष्य तपत आयतनम् आयतनवान् भवति य एवं वेद योपामायतनं वेद आयतनवान् भवति चन्द्रमा वा अपामायतनम् आयतनवान् भवति यश्चन्द्रमस आयतनं वेद आयतनवान् भवति आपो वै चन्द्रमस आयतनम् आयतनवान् भवति य एवं वेद योपामायतनं वेद आयतनवान् भवति नक्षत्राणि वा अपामायतनम् आयतनवान् भवति यो नक्षत्राणामायतनं वेद आयतनवान् भवति आपो वै नक्षत्राणामायतनम् आयतनवान् भवति य एवं वेद योपामायतनं वेद आयतनवान् भवति पर्जन्यो वा अपामायतनम् आयतनवान् भवति यः पर्जन्यस्यायतनं वेद आयतनवान् भवति आपो वै पर्जन्यस्यायतनम् आयतनवान् भवति य एवं वेद योपामायतनं वेद आयतनवान् भवति संवत्सरो वा अपामायतनम् आयतनवान् भवति यः संवत्सरस्यायतनं वेद आयतनवान् भवति आपो वै संवत्सरस्यायतनम् आयतनवान् भवति य एवं वेद योऽप्सुनावं प्रतिष्ठितां वेद प्रत्येव तिष्ठति राजाजिराजाय प्रसह्य साहिने नमो वयं वै श्रवणाय कुर्महे समेन् कामान् कामकामाय मह्यं कामेश्वरो वै श्रवणो दधातु कुबेराय वै श्रवणाय महाराजाय नमः। Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank you, Mr. Jagdish, for a wonderful chanting of Mantra Pushpam in your resounding voice and with bhakti. Friends, you should know the owner of this reverberating voice. Mr. B.V. Jagdish, who hails from a small remote village, Baglur, near Devanahalli, is now a very popular name in India as well as in US. He is a serial entrepreneur in Silicon Valley, an angel investor and philanthropist. He is the founder and CEO of Exodus Communications, managing partner in Jack Foundations. He is an investor and active board member of a number of companies. He is a mentor at IIM Bangalore and Ahmedabad. He is on the board of Akshaya Patra, Shankara Cancer Hospital, Bangalore. His OSAT, one school at a time, has rebuilt 55 to 60 dilapidated government schools in villages across India. He provides scholarships to about 250 engineering students of UBC every year through UBC Foundation. What I have told is only a fraction of what Jagdish is and what he does. Amidst all the above professional and philanthropic engagements, he chants Veda mantras and Upanishads with his friends regularly in Silicon Valley, California, where he stays. Last but not least, I am proud to add that I have a good fortune of being his friend. Thank you, Dr. Hegde sir, and all the teachers of the day for an engrossing session. Thank you, friends, for your focused participation. On coming Friday, we are commencing another great chapter called Vishwarupa Darshana Yoga. Please log in by 6:45 p.m. Until then, Jai Krishna, Jai Shri Krishna. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om.